What's going on, everybody? I'm here. I'm just working in the background, trying to figure out what's going on here, trying to get some live footage. This is a live shot right now of Tel Aviv. We're watching the skies above. It does seem like the reports coming out of Israel is that at least this upwards of maybe 300-400 ballistic missiles now seems to be over. But I'm trying to, I am here. I'm just working in the background here, trying to find some other live reporting from there.
Incredibly high number of intercepts above the cities of Israel. You can see the footage playing on the screen right now. Just incredible numbers of Iron Dome and arrow intercepts, knocking out rocket after rocket after rocket from the skies of Israel. And again, from what we know right now, there are no injured Israelis from rockets at all in the country. The only people hit so far, the only people hurt are people who are running to a bomb shelter, which is nothing short of incredible. Truly godly provision and godly supernatural protection over the country. One more thing, if you're watching now and joining us on this live, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We want people around the world to know what's happening here in Israel. Again, Israel is under attack by the Iranian government, who's been sending hundreds of rockets at Israeli civilians. Most of those rockets were shot down by the Israeli Iron Dome system, but still, this is an act of aggression, an act of war, an act of arbitrary violence against the people, the civilians of the state of Israel. Thank God, very few people are hurt, and none of them from direct rocket hits. If you're joining us right now, take a second to like, to share, to subscribe, and if you feel inclined to, and please do, there is a button on your screen called a super thank you that can make an immediate small donation or high donation, if you feel inclined to the TBN Israel channel, and that helps us keep going and keep creating content and bringing news and truth to you from Israel all the way to your home. So thank you again, all of you who've been joining us. It's been a dramatic night here in Israel. Over 200 rockets fired by the Iranians at the state of Israel. Very few of them, if at all, caused any substantial damage to civilian lives or equipment at this moment. And earlier this evening, a terrorist attack by 2 armed gunmen, still not identified, who left 6 murdered Israeli civilians in the city of Jaffa, which is close to Tel Aviv. Back to you, Yair.
Yes, Mati. Thank you very much for this detailed report. And I think it's a good time to thank our viewers for watching us, for tuning in, for seeking to know the truth of what is happening in Israel. I know it's a very hard thing to do, as this war is fought on multiple fronts, and one of them is the front for the public's opinion and the truth. And this is what we're trying to do here. We try to tell you what really is happening on the ground. And I'm receiving a report that the UN the leader of the United Nations condemned the attacks in the Middle East, but did not use the word Iran. So just the general attacks in the Middle East. Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General. Yeah, and we always see this happening, and it goes together with what I've been saying, that this is a spiritual war. This is a war between good and evil, and for somehow the bad guys are presenting themselves as the good guys. And if you're watching, I guess that you want to know what really is happening in Israel. We want to live here. We don't want a war. We want to live here with our families, with our children. My kids were just in bed, and I had to wake them at least 3 times to go to bomb shelters in the past hour alone, just to seek shelter. This is the situation, and we're at war. But we have a strong army. We've been at war for a year now. The country is united. We are ready to face whatever the enemy will put in front of us. And I don't know, Mati, do we have any additional updates? Something that we didn't share?
Yes. Just coming in right now. This just in, as they say in the news world. Shortly after this terrorist attack started by the Iranian government against the state of Israel, the Israeli military spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, came in and said, I want to make sure I get his quote right. He says, the fire from Iran will have consequences. A previous quote used much stronger language, saying that the Iranians haven't seen anything from what Israel is planning to retaliate with. And more so, the IDF has reported that they don't see any additional rockets fired towards the state of Israel. And what's amazing here is even though this incredibly large barrage, again, more than 200 rockets fired from Iran at the state of Israel, even all of them were fired, Israeli air defense systems were capable of shooting down almost everything that was aimed at civilian population in this country. We don't know of any civilian casualties or injured at all yet at this moment. And it shows the efficacy of the system. MADA, the Israeli Red Cross or Israeli David Star, says that 2 civilians were lightly injured in the Tel Aviv area, and a couple other people around the country were injured falling on their way to bomb shelters. So again,
Yes.
An incredible and unprecedented attack on the state of Israel, parallel only to the attack that took place on April 14th, where we believe there were much more, close to 500 projectiles that were fired towards Israel. And again, an incredibly successful night for Israeli air defense systems in shooting down those rockets before they could hurt civilians in the state of Israel. Of course, all of that is put in a slightly dimmer light, or more negative light, when you look at the successful or somewhat successful terrorist attack in Jaffa, leaving 6 murdered Israeli civilians by 2 unknown guns.
All right, so while we're listening to this, I do have a couple things else I'm following here. I have the White House press briefing that we're waiting for. And of course, we have President Trump in Wisconsin. That's about 26 minutes away. Press briefing, we'll catch that when that starts as well.
There's nothing short of a miracle and a testament to the efficacy of the Iron Dome system, but an incredible, incredible night. Dramatic, but at the same time, positive in its outcome so far.
Yes, Mati, just a few updates. We have more government officials in Israel stating that Israel now has the legitimacy to strike in the heart of Iran hard. And this backs the statements from the IDF that the IDF, the Israeli Air Force, has plans ready to strike strategic and military targets in Iran in response to this attack. This is the situation now on the ground. We are waiting for the Israeli response to this attack of 180 ballistic missiles towards the Jewish state. And unless we have any recent updates, Mati, I think it's time for us to conclude this live. I would like to wish all of our viewers a blessed night here from Israel, and tomorrow, Happy New Year, Shana Tova. The people of Israel is resilient. The people of Israel is strong. Despite all these attacks, life goes on, and we know that we will win. We will live here. We will have a future. We are not afraid, Mati, and we will have a great night. So great night to all of you, and keep praying
Amen.
for the peace of Jerusalem and for Israel to win this war against this evil regime in Iran. Thank you to all of you who stand with Israel, with the truth. Keep praying, keep supporting, and keep sharing these videos and the truth of what is happening in Israel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again.
Thank you, everyone. And as we say in Israel, may the blessings of the following year outweigh the curses of this current year. May the next year, the next Jewish year, be a year full of blessing for the people of Israel and everyone watching. Thank you, Yael. And thank you to our team.
Shana Tova to all of you. Shana Tova, Mati. Shana Tova l'kulam. See you soon.
All right, we'll go. We'll go back to our live shot in Tel Aviv right now. All seems quiet, which is a big change from about an hour and a half ago when the skies were lit up. Somewhere between 180, 200, I've heard upwards of 400 ballistic missiles fired at Israel from Iran. And it will be interesting to see what the response is to this now. We're also monitoring and waiting for, as I said, we've got President Trump in Wisconsin. Obviously, the president, I'm sure, will open with this. We're waiting on the White House press briefing, see what they have to say about this. We can get some initial reaction of what else is going on while we're waiting. Our friend Michael Knowles, when Trump was president, we had peace. Caroline Glick, who if you don't follow her, you should, if you want to know what's going on. Everything Israel. The Israeli Air Force, approximately 10 million civilians are the targets of Iranian projectiles. I mean, you look at that map on this app that I guess they use called Red Alert. The entire state of Israel was red. The Iranian regime played their hand badly. Hamas and Hezbollah were supposed to provide the deterrence needed to protect their hold on power until a nuclear arsenal could be developed to do the same. Now Hamas is in ruins and Hezbollah's leadership decapitated. Iran's response to these losses, predictably, is to show it still has teeth, but in attacking Israel directly, they now give the IDF all the permission they need to strike directly in response. The Iranian nuclear program is now doomed. The Iranian regime itself may well follow. The Obama-Biden experiment in Iranian regional is ending as it was always going to: fire and death, got to protect the innocent. And that's probably, well, we'll see. We'll see what the response is from This was about an hour and a half ago. Now, I guess what I didn't realize as you were watching this live is that if they think these projectiles are going to land in non-populated areas, whether it's in the water or on barren land, they just let them. As you're watching this and you're watching these missiles rain down, you're thinking to yourself, holy cow, all these hits. But actually, that's not the case. They don't hit populated areas. I guess there's a system there in Israel. They know that if there's a projectile that has some kind of an angle of descent where they think it lands in a populated area, then obviously they take it out. So a lot of those that you see did hit really just in barren land or in the water. We're waiting on the Pentagon as well, expecting a briefing over there. Let's see if we can get up. I'm just going to stay live through President Trump, by the way. I'm just going to stay live through when the president speaks. So if you want to hang here, we'll get to the president in about 19 minutes. It's supposed to. Try to get between the briefing, whenever that starts. Let's see if we can find the State Department as well. All right, we got the State Department up here as well, so we have pretty much everything covered. We'll stick with this since this looks like the first thing that's going to pop off.
Because they won't. Okay, they did. That's what they were. Yeah, no, I mean, I have to say, I was like, no, I think she said that this is exactly actually. It was really on her remarks. Yeah, Harris. Yeah, because that was a very specific thing. She was so okay, it's hard to do this. Yeah. But I think that's what they were referring to. Okay, that's the town. I mean, well, I didn't realize that. Well, I think right. I think they're now it extends it beyond, but also that person, I asked that person, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure this is going to get extended, right? So yeah, he's like, no, we can. Yeah. Yeah. This is going to get over it. But what bugged me is like it was like she's going to say that she's going to but anything about it. She didn't like she's going to say well, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to speak as didn't see. I just I mean, you wouldn't have been wrong. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, I just want to. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would detour when this president said this, you guys did this yesterday. Should we expect? I mean, go up the line. That was like the doors were closed. Yep. Pretty good. I was the one you guys gonna be a second thing. Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I guess I was just talking about like anything else. I just kind of knew, I guess I was just going back. Whether or not it's happening, what was going on. The police were just happy to be there. No. Yeah, literally a van in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, understood. Yeah. I just remember like in past kind of FEMA situations, what stands out is the kind of why, or not fire, why you had like kind of like underground, catalog, so what was going on behind the scenes. So I just wanted to see like to the extent that you had, just if you could try to share. Yeah, and again, not like not like I'm not on that like right now. Just yeah. But as soon as you can, But I'm not turning over a story today. So. Well, that's a little harder. Okay. Alrighty. I'm doing well. 35 days before. A lot going on between that. term, and then over in the Middle East. Always a lot. Always a lot. Yeah. Good. Big debates on the rules. See how that goes. Yeah, I love that city. And then you're from it's gonna be it's like the downtown, I guess, is probably okay. It's not how it's surrounding parts. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, everyone loves this. This is kind of such a cool spot. Yeah, that's all that. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Yeah. Yeah. I know the roads, it's hard to literally get around right now. It's really small. But, yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's, I'm glad to see what you're able to get me on that. Yeah, we'll just go from there. All right. All right.
It was not.
Yeah, and I was like, I dressed like crazy. So she was super lovely, and I was like, she's very nice. But then I remember like some songs trying to play some so now I'm like,
Oh yeah, I mean that's true.
I'm in the Congress with all. She just right under it. That's the thing. Yeah, she just right under it. We've exchanged stuff. I've seen it all. Yeah, it's right. I was like, I feel like it's like it's pretty mixed up, but check it out. First, yeah, first time. Yeah. Very right.
All right, we're still waiting for the press briefing to start. We've also got President Trump up in about 7-8 minutes or so until he goes live. We've also got the Department of State press briefing up as well, so we're monitoring all three. I'm trying to monitor all three here in the background so we don't miss anything. We'll leave the press briefing up for now until President Trump starts. And obviously we'll take him as the priority to hear what he has to say here. I'm sure he'll have plenty to say about what's going on today. So we'll do all that, so we'll keep monitoring this. All right, we're still waiting for the White House press briefing to start. Meanwhile, we're monitoring the State Department as well, waiting for them to start. I don't know if they all like coordinate this shit or they're all going to start at the same time or what, but we're waiting on Jean-Pierre. We've also got the president up. As soon as he starts to speak, we'll obviously take him. We've got a live shot from Tel Aviv, still all quiet in the skies over Israel, which of course it was not around 2 hours ago, as they took a barrage of incoming from Iran. We expect the president and all three of these things we're monitoring, obviously, to talk about it. Governor DeSantis, as usual, has the response correct. Specifically, the last line: Israel should not be hampered from mounting a robust response by the U.S. government. That's correct. And that's what you'll hear from most people who talk about it. Well, it should be measured. It should be this. No. At this point, it's victory or nothing.
Like us, China also saw their weakness. So did Putin. Then he invaded Ukraine. Hamas saw Harris' anti-Israel statements and will use it as a green light to keep murdering Israelis. And Iran thinks Harris is so incompetent. New intel shows they're trying to help Harris win the election. America doesn't need another TikTok performer. We need the strength that will protect us.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Like us, China also saw their weakness. So did Putin. Then he invaded Ukraine. Hamas saw Harris' anti-Israel statements and will use it as a green light to keep murdering Israelis. And Iran thinks Harris is so incompetent. New intel shows they're trying to help Harris win the election. America doesn't need another TikTok performer. We need the strength that will protect us.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Like us.
There you go. American media propagandists insisting Israel not respond to Iran. Tell me, is there another country that would not respond? I'm sure Biden is trying to stop Israel.
Okay. Tuesday the 22nd. Correct. Yep. That was on like the 18th or the 19th, or the 19th. I could do either one, Friday or Saturday. And that I'm flying. Correct, DCA, exactly, but I can Uber for part of it. If I have to, or like just go to Boston. Right, right. Yeah, okay, and then, right. Right, right. And the Santa Barbara ones, you just found some really good ones. You know, I did both ways, so.
As I said on the morning stream, everything that's happening right now,
Yeah, no,
everything
that's
that's
fine.
happening,
Sending the flights that you found, 'cause I-
foreign, domestically,
Cor- Correct.
just continues to tell me that she's going to continue to leak support. People are going to wake up and realize the kind of world we're living in and understand that she just is so far in over her. The two of them would be so far in over her head in this world.
It's actually, well, no, it's not, it's going to Santa Barbara and coming back from LAX.
Be interesting to see how this reshapes tonight's questions.
But coming back, we don't.
I thought maybe the port strike would be the first thing. Obviously, now we know this will be the first thing.
Right, right.
If this is not the first thing, then, I mean, the moderators at that point have pretty much have absolutely no credibility to even go forward. Might as well just shut the whole thing down.
All right, yes, send me those.
And J.D. Vance will be prepared to give a little history lesson, going back to the Obama administration's Joe Biden vice president disastrous dealings with Iran and how we got to this day.
Right, yeah. That's great.
Bank on that.
Okay.
Brilliant, thanks. 10 minutes.
10 minutes. 10? That should be fast.
everybody out here was gonna eat the coolers. They said that they'll update. Maybe not. They know that we're waiting.
It's amazing when you think back on all the times that Biden and Harris have been asked about Iran, and all they could say was don't. Well, I think Iran has basically said you could take your don't and shove it, because they clearly don't care and don't respect you. IDF spokesperson gave a statement basically saying that what they were trying to do was another October 7th style attack.
On October 8th, the Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon launched an unprovoked attack on Israel. Hezbollah chose to join the war that Hamas started on October 7th with their brutal massacre in southern Israel. Since then, Hezbollah has fired over 9,500 rockets at Israeli homes, families, and communities, forcing 60,000 Israelis to evacuate their homes. Hezbollah has openly declared that it plans to carry out its own October 7th massacre on Israel's northern border, but on an even larger scale. They call this plan Conquer the Galilee. For years, Hezbollah has been planning to do in northern Israel what Hamas did in southern Israel on October 7th. Invade Israel, infiltrate civilian communities, and massacre innocent civilians. To make sure that Hezbollah can never carry out such an attack, and in order to enable all 60,000 Israelis to safely return back to their homes in northern Israel, the IDF is taking action. Hezbollah planned to launch their October 7th attack from villages across southern Lebanon, where they have been building up their arms capabilities and forces for the last 2 decades. Hezbollah also dug tunnels under homes in these villages close to the border with Israel. Tonight, we are declassifying a series of IDF operations conducted since the beginning of the war, aimed at dismantling Hezbollah's terrorist infrastructure and capabilities in the area of the Israel-Lebanon border, as part of our efforts to make sure that the residents of northern Israel can return to their home in safety and security without the threat of Hezbollah on their doorstep. During these operations, IDF special forces entered into Hezbollah compounds in dozens of locations along the border with Israel, collected intelligence, dismantled Hezbollah's weapons and terrorist infrastructures. Our soldiers entered Hezbollah's underground infrastructures, exposed Hezbollah's hidden weapon caches, and seized and destroyed the weapons, including advanced Iranian-made weapons. Overall, IDF soldiers exposed and dismantled over 700 Hezbollah terror assets during these operations. And there's a lot more work to do. Tonight, I will declassify details of 3 of these special operations. This is the village of Misl Jabal. It is a Lebanese village close to the border with Israel, only a few hundred meters away from the Israeli city of Kiryat Shmona. Since the beginning of the war, the majority of over 20,000 residents of Kiryat Shmona had to evacuate their homes after coming under fire from Hezbollah's relentless attacks. We have operated against hundreds of terrorist targets embedded inside Misl Jabal, which directly threatened the city of Kiryat Shmona and the wider northern region. Many of the Lebanese residents of Misl Jabal have left the area due to the Hezbollah terrorist activities. As part of this operation, we collected intelligence on this house, on the edge of the Lebanese village, near the border with Israel, which you can see here. The house was used by Hezbollah terrorists who dug underground infrastructure below it. This combat infrastructure was used by the terrorists to store weapons and was planned to be the preparation area for Hezbollah terrorists before attempting to invade Israeli territory. During the operation, the troops conducted a targeted raid on the house and revealed a large amount of weapons stored on the ground floor. In the basement, our soldiers found an elevated platform built to hide a shaft that led to an underground tunnel. The soldiers exposed the tunnel 150 meters long that did not cross into Israeli territory, that was excavated in stone. At the end of the activity, we dismantled the tunnel and the house in a joint ground and aerial strikes. Another example is the Lebanese village of Farkile, on the border just a few hundred meters away from the Israeli town of Metula. Metula has been one of the most heavily attacked Israeli communities over the last year. We have conducted hundreds of strikes and operations against Hezbollah terror infrastructure in Farkile in order to remove these threats to Israeli families that want to go back home. In one operation, we followed precise intelligence regarding an underground tunnel used by Hezbollah to hide weapons. IDF soldiers conducted targeted raid on this house, and during scans in the children's room, there, under the bed, they located an underground tunnel shaft. The soldiers went inside the tunnel shaft and revealed a 100-meter-long underground tunnel excavated in stone. The troops scanned the tunnel and found weapons stored in barrels. In one of the rooms, they exposed weapons storage facility intended to be used by Hezbollah on the day of the planned invasion. At the end of the operation, the house, the tunnel, and the arsenal of weapons were dismantled in a ground and aerial strikes. The final example is an operation against Hezbollah's infrastructure in the area of Nurit, which is between Israel's border and the Lebanese village of Ait el-Shaib. Since the beginning of the war, IDF troops have struck hundreds of Hezbollah targets, including military outposts, rocket launchers, and weapon storage facilities in the area. Using classified technological means, we identified a Hezbollah combat and underground preparation area built near the village. The compound that you see here included a system of combat trenches above and below ground. This network of trenches connects to an underground tunnel which includes weapon storage facility, a command and control center, and the preparation and living spaces for Hezbollah terrorists. This is how the compound looked from footage recorded on IDF soldiers' body cameras. Our soldiers raided combat trenches at the top of the mountain. They scanned them and found an access point to a tunnel route that goes down below the ground in the direction of the Lebanese village. The soldiers went deep inside the tunnel, where they found large numbers of weapons stored in the living compounds. At the end of the operation, all of the infrastructure built by Hezbollah over many years was dismantled in a joint ground and aerial activity. The operation that we declassified tonight are only a small number of dozens of operations that will be revealed going forward, including the destruction of Hezbollah's strategic assets and capabilities. Hezbollah has built, prepared, and equipped this infrastructure over many years in preparation for the day that it would carry out an invasion into northern Israel. In one of the buildings that our troops raided, we found proof of this. This is a map that Hezbollah planned to give its terrorists at the time of a wide-scale invasion into the state of Israel, as part of its Conquer the Galilee plan to carry out an October 7th massacre in Israel's north. As you can see on the map, there is a key marking Israeli communities, IDF posts, access roads, and targets for attack. We found this map on one of the compounds that was supposed to be used by thousands of Hezbollah terrorists on the day they carried out their invasion. Our precise operations against Hezbollah throughout the war have degraded Hezbollah's ability to carry out an October 7 style invasion along our northern border. Israel warned Hezbollah that it will bear the consequences of its attacks against Israel. However, Hezbollah continued its aggression, it continued to expand its range of fire against Israeli civilians, and continued to drag the people of Lebanon towards a wider escalation. Our war is not with the people of Lebanon, it's with Hezbollah. This is a clear message to the international community. For years, Israel has warned the world that Hezbollah is violating international law and United Nations Security Council Resolution 1701, which prohibits the presence of armed militants and weapons in southern Lebanon. This was a resolution that the international community agreed on, and Lebanon and UNIFIL failed to enforce. No country would agree to the presence of a murderous terrorist organization along its borders, and the State of Israel has the right and the obligation to do what 1701 failed to do. We will continue presenting our findings to the international community, including evidence that we brought back from inside Hezbollah strongholds along our border. Israel is facing threats on many fronts and continues to act against them in defense of the people of Israel. We are committed to achieving all of our goals. In Gaza, we're continuing to operate to bring home all 101 hostages who have been held in brutal conditions by Hamas for almost a year. We are continuing to operate to dismantle Hamas's capability to ensure that they can never again carry out a massacre against us. And we are intensively operating against the Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon in order to enable the residents of northern Israel to return home in safety and security. This is our missions, and we are determined to fulfill them.
Pretty in-depth videos they put together. All right, we are still monitoring the White House press briefing. I don't know what time this is. Maybe it's not supposed to start till 3. I thought it was 2. But we're monitoring that. We're monitoring President Trump in Wisconsin, and we're monitoring the State Department press briefing, which we're also waiting for to start. While we're waiting, we'll keep going through some. This is at the debate site for tonight. Yeah, Byron York. I said this was reshaped tonight, and he says a debate amid chaos. On debate night with disorder on so many fronts, Trump Vance have the simplest campaign pitch in the world. Things were good when Trump was president. Things went to hell when Biden Harris entered the White House. Trump will make things good again. Maybe voters buy it, maybe they don't, but it's the fundamental issue of the race. And he should have absolutely no problem making the case. I would suspect. Looks like we're getting close here. Peter Ducey's in his seat. Speaking of over your head, that's what we're about to watch here. All right, here you go. We'll listen together.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to be really quick here. I have the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, to talk about the latest in the Middle East, so I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Corinne, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to provide a brief report on the Iranian ballistic missile attack against Israel that occurred earlier today. I can take just a few questions because this is an ongoing situation and I need to get back to my desk. Today, Iran launched nearly 200 ballistic missiles towards targets in Israel. The United States military coordinated closely with the Israeli Defense Forces to help defend Israel against this attack. U.S. naval destroyers joined Israeli air defense units in firing interceptors to shoot down inbound missiles. President Biden and Vice President Harris monitored the attack and the response from the White House Situation Room, joined in person and remotely by their national security team. We are still working with the IDF and the authorities in Israel to assess the impact of the attack. But at this time, and I stress at this time, we do not know of any deaths in Israel. We are tracking the reported death of a Palestinian civilian in Jericho in the West Bank. We do not know of any damage to aircraft or strategic military assets in Israel. In short, based on what we know at this point, this attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. This was first and foremost the result of the professionalism of the IDF, but in no small part because of the skilled work of the U.S. military and meticulous joint planning in anticipation of the attack. We are also aware of reports of a terrorist attack in Jaffa that took the lives of a number of Israeli civilians and wounded several others today. Our condolences go out to the families of the victims and to the family of the Palestinian civilian in Jericho. Obviously, my update here is based on early reports, and we reserve the right to amend and adjust as necessary as we gather more information. The word fog of war was invented for a situation like this. This is a fluid situation. We will consult with the Israelis on next steps in terms of the response and how to deal with what Iran has just done, and we will continue to monitor for further threats and attacks from Iran and its proxies. We are particularly focused on protecting U.S. service members in the region. And with that, I'll take just a few questions. Yeah.
Thanks, Jake. Is the administration making any preparations to evacuate U.S. citizens from Lebanon or elsewhere in the region?
We have been very clear for some time now that U.S. citizens should avail themselves of commercial means to depart Lebanon, given everything that's going on. We have said that from this podium, from multiple podiums. We continue to say that, but we have not begun triggering a non-combatant emergency evacuation, a NEO, and do not have an intention to do so at this time. If that changes, we'll let you know. But we continue to reinforce the point. American citizens in Lebanon should follow the guidance from the State Department, which is to find civilian commercial means to depart, because in extremis, we may not be able to get them out safely. Yes.
Thanks, Jake. What is the U.S. view on whether Israel should retaliate, and what is your concern about this leading to a wider escalation of war in the region?
We've had some initial discussions with the Israelis in the aftermath of this at the military level and also at the White House to Prime Minister's office level. We'll continue those conversations in the hours ahead. I'm not going to prejudge or get ahead of anything. We want to have some deep consultations with the Israelis, and I'll have more to report to you after we get the opportunity for deeper discussions.
And escalation in the region?
Obviously, this is a significant escalation by Iran, a significant event, and it is equally significant that we were able to step up with Israel and create a situation in which no one was killed in this attack in Israel, so far as we know at this time. We are now going to look at what the appropriate next steps are to secure, first and foremost, American interests, and then to promote stability to the maximum extent possible as we go forward. Yeah.
Back in April, the president's message to Israel was to take the win when the U.S. and Israel were able to intercept the barrage of Iranian missiles. Is he recommending a similar similarly limited response this time?
I will not, from this podium, share the president's recommendations. He will have the opportunity to share them directly. We're going to have, as I said, ongoing consultations with the Israelis this afternoon, this evening. It is too early for me to tell you anything publicly in terms of our assessment or in terms of what our expectations are of the Israelis or the advice that we will give them.
So will he be speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu today?
I don't have anything to announce from this podium, but I can tell you that he is tracking this minute by minute. We are very much deeply in touch with the Israelis, and insofar as we have calls to read out, we'll make sure to read them out with you. Just last question, then I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Jake. In April, after Iran struck Israel, the U.S. issued a number of sanctions as a consequence. This morning, the president said there would be severe consequences if Iran carried out this attack. What are those consequences, and are they more severe than sanctions?
Totally legitimate question, and that answer will come based on the conversations and consultations we have with our Israeli counterparts. It's too soon for me to stand before you today and give you an answer. What I can tell you is this. We are proud of the actions that we've taken alongside Israel.
Remember, this
to
is a guy who
protect and
told us
defend
that the Middle
Israel.
East was
We
much
have made
calmer
clear that there will
than it
be
was under Trump
consequences,
just
severe
about 2 years
consequences
ago.
for this attack, and we will work with Israel to make that the case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jake. Okay, on to the rest of the programming here. This morning, President Biden was briefed by his Homeland Security Advisor, Liz Sherwood Randall, on the latest impacts of Hurricane Helene, and this afternoon he will receive an interagency briefing on the Hurricane Helene response and recovery efforts. At the president's direction, the Biden-Harris administration continues to use every tool available to get assistance and resources to the communities that need them the most. Yesterday, the president approved a major disaster declaration for Georgia, which will unlock additional assistance to help those recovering. This is in addition to the major disaster declaration swiftly approved by the president following requests from North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida, as well as requests for emergency assistance across 7 states. Tomorrow, the president will travel to Raleigh, North Carolina, where he will visit the State Emergency Operations Center to meet with local officials and also first responders. And the vice president will travel to Augusta, Georgia tomorrow, and will then head to North Carolina in the coming days. As of today, thousands of personnel from across the federal workforce are deployed and supporting state-led Hurricane Helene response efforts across the 6 affected states, including over 1,200 personnel in North Carolina. Still, there is more work to be done, and the Biden-Harris administration will be there for these communities every step of the way. Now, as you can see, we also have Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas.
Thank you, Corinne, and good
great.
afternoon.
It's like failure day in the briefing room.
Before standing at the podium, I was at FEMA's National Operations Center being briefed by our personnel as well as state emergency personnel. I thought it very moving and very telling that North Carolina's Emergency Management Director described Hurricane Helene as catastrophic and noted the fact that numerous towns situated along the river had virtually disappeared, had been completely destroyed. In fact, Hurricane Helene is of an historic magnitude. This many states hit this hard. The wind field of the hurricane stretched 350 miles from its center. More than 100 fatalities have been reported, hundreds and hundreds of homes and businesses destroyed. Our hearts break for those who have lost loved ones, and we pray for the swift assistance and rescue of those who are currently missing. We are in different phases of a post-hurricane environment, depending on the state and the location within the state. In some areas, we are still in search and recovery, search and rescue operations. In others, we are, in fact, in the response and recovery phase. I thought I would give you some of the latest statistics based on the briefing that I received. And I should say that these numbers are, as you can all well understand, quite dynamic and fluid. They change minute by minute and hour by hour. But just as devastating as the hurricane
we're not
has
missing
been,
President Trump, by the way, just so you know. All these are still On hold.
We have more than 2,000 federal personnel dedicated to this effort. On the ground, we have more than 1,200 urban search and rescue personnel. FEMA staff deployed, over 1,200. Corinne mentioned the major disaster declarations and the emergency declarations previously issued. I should note that in the 6 states most severely impacted, the emergency declarations were issued before the storm hit, and we had thousands of personnel dedicated there. We have delivered more than 2.6 million ready-to-eat meals and more than 1 million liters of water. At its peak, there were 5.1 million customers without power. We have reduced that amount, and not just the federal government in support of the state and local authorities, but working very closely with the power companies and the other utilities. We've reduced that number of customers without power by 3.8 million people. And so the operation is very, very significantly underway. We are working in support of our state and local partners. This is an all-of-government, frankly, all-of-community effort. And with that, I'll take some questions.
With regards to how many were unaccounted for, yesterday Liz said about 600 were unaccounted for. Do you have an updated number on that?
We do not have an update, but that work is still underway. And I know, for example, within the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard has recently rescued approximately 21 people through their patrols.
And there was also discussion yesterday on whether resources may have been better pre-positioned in other parts of the country. There were many assets in the Big Bend region of Florida, some in North Carolina, but should the government have pre-positioned more in the North Carolina area?
Well, we actually pre-positioned our personnel, and state and local personnel were pre-positioned in all 6 of the most heavily impacted states. This is an historic hurricane. It reached not only industrial areas, but of course, as we also poignantly see, rural areas as well.
Yeah, thanks, Corinne. Liz yesterday, focusing on the pre-positioning here before the storm, said that it was focused on the Big Bend region of Florida. So what pre-positioning was taking place there that wasn't taking place in the North Carolina, Western North Carolina area?
Remember that the pre-positioning of assets, to include personnel as well as equipment and the like, also depends on the terrain and the access points. And so we pre-position where we think the impacts are going to be greatest. And we have seen the impacts hit mountainous regions that are inaccessible. We now have roads destroyed. There is a significant amount of mud. We understand that people are still situated in the mud, and therefore we cannot undertake debris removal until we are assured that the search and rescue operation has been completed. We have to be very careful about the lives that still can be saved.
Well, what sorts of things were done in North Carolina before the storm came? Like, what was the federal presence there, emergency-wise?
I don't have the specific numbers of the personnel already situated, but we can get you that data.
Love when these guys come to these meetings
Despite
with
all
no numbers, totally unprepared.
Things that the federal government did and its response, the sentiment, according to my colleagues on the ground from people, is that the federal government is not doing enough to help. Where are they? Where is the help? What is your message to those people?
I would say the following, that we are there and we will continue to be there, and we will reach the most difficult to access locations. We are relentless in our efforts to ensure the safety and security of all. And as Corinne pointed out, we will be there for the long haul as well. And I must pay tribute to the heroic men and women, not only of the Federal Emergency Management Administration, but throughout the federal government and throughout the state and local enterprise.
Thank you, Secretary, for talking about electric power. I'm curious about the status of cell phone service, as the Associated Press is hearing reports that people are having a tough time using their cell phones, being able to make calls, even reach you. What are you doing, and what is the status of that right now?
In fact, communication has been difficult in a number of areas, if not impossible. A great deal of infrastructure has been demolished. We are working with the private communications companies as well as the FCC to ensure that we can rebuild communication towers. We have, for example, deployed 50 Starlink satellite systems to help with the reconstruction of that infrastructure.
You mentioned that there are roads that have been destroyed. There are places that are so hard hit that it's hard to get to them right now. The president mentioned land bridges yesterday and working with the Defense Department. Can you talk about what the effort is right now to get to some of those hard hit areas and what the timeline is looking like to reach the people that are in need there right now?
So this is at the president and vice president's direction and all of government effort. So it's not only by land, but we have deployed air assets. The Department of Defense has been of extraordinary assistance. I don't recall exactly the number of Army Corps of Engineers that have been deployed. I think it's close to 6,000. So it's an all-of-government effort to reach individuals, not just by land, but by air as well.
And how quickly do you anticipate getting to some of those areas that have been cut off because of the roads being flooded?
As quickly as we can.
Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Karine. Mr. Secretary, do you have a sense of how much money it's going to cost, A, to do this relief effort, and B, to do the rebuild effort once we get there, and how much of that will be covered by insurance companies, and how much will be covered by the government?
So this is a multi-billion-dollar undertaking. In terms of the search and rescue and the response, I should note that we already have approved approximately $1.7 million in individual assistance that individuals will be able to access. I believe it'll be as early as tomorrow. It is a direct deposit into their accounts. But the rebuilding is something that is not for today, but that is going to be extraordinarily costly, and it's going to be a multi-year enterprise.
Thank you, Attorney. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Two questions. First, about the president's decision to go to Raleigh. Can you give us a little bit of a breakdown as to why he's going to that location and what he will see and whether or not he'll be...
Thank you, everybody. This is a nice plant. Outside, we could probably get another 30,000 people. Would anybody like to give up their position? No? I've never had anyone say yes. Someday we're going to meet somebody that says yes. Hello, Wisconsin. It's great to be back in this beautiful state with thousands of hardworking, great American patriots. We appreciate it, too. And, you know, we were up here on Saturday. We had a group, Tommy, I think it was maybe 50 or 60,000 people. And because we were not afforded the luxury of having enough security not because of Secret Service, but because of Washington, I spoke in front of about 700 people, and 50 or 60,000 people weren't able to see. And I think they still love me, but we have to make sure. And you know what that was? That was the political opponent saying, we don't want him to have a crowd like that. But outside, I'll tell you, we have a lot. This is a different kind of a speech. You know, really, this is a speech on the economics and bringing back business and things. And it's a great plant and a beautiful couple, a beautiful Mr. and Mrs. couple. And it's great to be here. It's really great to be here. It's beautiful. I want to thank Troy Berg and everyone at Dane Manufacturing for hosting us. Thank you, Troy. Where is Troy? Where is he? What a beautiful couple that is. More importantly, I'd like to thank you. That's great. Thank you both very much. Appreciate it. Is he a great owner? Great owner, great everything, right? And what was the 16 all about? Oh, 16. Whoa, he's better looking than you, Troy. That's good. That's great. Thank you very much, everybody. Let me begin by sending our love to every family that has been affected by the Hurricane Helene. I witnessed the damage firsthand yesterday in Georgia, and as you know, North Carolina was just devastated. We can't even get in. They don't have communication. They don't have anything. Towns were flooded. Asheville, is, as you know, totally underwater, big place. Massive numbers of lives were lost yesterday, the day before yesterday, and still counting. They have a lot of missing people. Alabama, Tennessee, Virginia, and a couple of other places got a little hit, but in particular these places, and Georgia was hit very, very hard. But I want to thank Elon Musk for responding to my request that Starlink be provided to North Carolina. You know, and the lines were all down. They had no communication. You couldn't get to North Carolina, the area that was hit. And they were all saying, does anybody know Elon Musk? I said, yeah, I do. I raised my hand. They asked a question. I said, yeah, I know. I said, what's the problem? They said, do you think you could get him to get Starlink, which is amazing stuff, right? Starlink. And I said, I don't know too much about Starlink, but if you want it, we can get it. I called Elon, and they had so many people over there, Tommy. They had so many people over there so quickly, and they have great communication now. But, I mean, it's a terrible. But thank you, Elon, and because of you, they're in really great shape now from the standpoint of emergency needs. And we're going to be going there on Friday. I hope we can get in because it's tough. It's really bad. One of the worst, they say, one of the worst hurricanes, maybe the worst hurricane they've ever seen. Some people that have done this for 25 years said that was the worst they've ever seen because of the water. The water was the big one. They had big winds, but the water was the big damage. It just went over the top of houses, if you can believe. Houses. And people went up to the second floor for safety, and literally the water went over the house. But we mourn all of our fellow citizens who have lost their lives, and we're keeping their families in our hearts, and we'll continue to work with them. But praise be to God. I tell you, it's really incredible. And then on top of that, as you know, the world right now is spiraling out of control. You might not have seen what's happened because it was a few hours ago. A lot of people were here. There's so many people outside, which we appreciate. But a lot of people were here a short time ago. Iran launched 181 ballistic missiles at Israel. And I've been talking about World War III for a long time. And I don't want to make predictions because the predictions always come true. We're not going to make, but they are very close to global catastrophe. We have a non-existent president and a non-existent vice president who should be in charge, but nobody knows what's going on. She was at a fundraiser in San Francisco, a city that she totally destroyed, by the way. San Francisco was the best city in the country maybe 20 years ago, and today you can't even... This is the sound we're getting. I've checked 4 other feeds. They're all getting the same audio. It really is this low. There's nothing I can do about it. It continually amazes me they can't get this stuff right. But I say it's, I don't know, maybe it stages a comeback, but it's literally not livable. And 20 years ago, it was the best city in the country, probably one of the best cities anywhere in the world. But they, she was caught yesterday on an airplane staging a fake photo op. Did you see that with the telephone? The only problem is she didn't have the phone plugged in. She was talking. She's talking on the phone. The phone is not plugged in. She's talking like she's working. I'm working so hard. Oh, boy, what a group. What a group. No one is in charge of our country, and it's not even clear. Really, I mean, who's in charge between the two of them? You have a president, I guess. You have a vice president, I guess. She should have never been chosen because she never got any votes. I'm not a big fan of his, but he got 14 million votes, and it was a coup. Would you say, Scott, that was a coup? If Scott Walker says it was a coup, Tommy, I say it was a coup, okay? But it was a coup. It was terrible, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. And we're doing great in the polls. They just came out with new ones. Rasmussen, we're really good. I mean, it took a little honeymoon. For 4 weeks you did nothing but hear about. She went from being the worst vice president in history. He's the worst president in history. It's the worst administration by far in the history of our country. Look at our border where people are pouring in and they're criminals and they're murderers and drug dealers. Look at what they've done. And then she goes up 5 days ago, and tries to explain that, we're going to do great things in the future. And I always say that everything they say, why didn't you do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do it? They keep talking. She said, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to we can't have another 4 years of what we went through. It's embarrassing. The whole world is laughing at us. That's why Israel was under attack just a little while ago, because they don't respect our country anymore. The so-called enemy doesn't respect our country any longer. They don't. And, you'll get it back soon, I hope. I hope. Thank you. Whoever that is. Who is that person? Who said that? Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very nice. Even though she disturbed my chain of thought. That kind of a disturbance we don't mind, right? But when I was president, Iran was in total check. The Iranians were starved for cash. Nobody was buying their oil. And they were ready to make a deal. They wanted to make a deal. They wanted to do something. And terrible thing. We got more votes in the second election, as you know. We had 2016, 2020. We got millions and millions more votes the second time. And they missed by just a little sliver, right? Somebody said like 19,000 votes. It's just a disgrace. They're not going to be able to do that a second time. They're not going to be able to do that a second time. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made Iran rich in a very short period of 3.5 years. They have $300 billion now. They're rich. I mean, they pay $6 billion every time they have if they have somebody that was kidnapped. It's always $6 billion. Who ever heard of that? Somebody else gets like $4,000. How much you want? Give me $2,000. You have anything? $6 billion. It's always $6 billion. With Russia, it was $6 billion. And they also got back their spy, the greatest spy, they say perhaps. He was a spy, but he was really more of an arms merchant. And the greatest arms merchant, the greatest buyer of military equipment, they say, anywhere at any time. They got him back, but we got our basketball player back. That was the trend. Well, that is true. She used to tie her sneakers during the national anthem, right? And we got her back, and they got the best, and I'm not saying he's a nice human being, but he was the #1 arms dealer in the world for a long time. But Iran was on the verge of bankruptcy. They had no money left. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah, the people they're fighting now. They would have been willing to make any deal. You could have made any deal, but Kamala flooded them with American cash. And even now, I mean, they're flooding them with cash. It's honestly, it's not even believable. It's like men and women's sports. It's not believable. It's like open borders. Why would they want an open border? It's so stupid. We're the party of common sense, by the way. We are the, I like to say it all. Forget conservative, yes. But, we're the party of common sense, because it's really more common sense than anything else. We want borders. We want fair elections. We want honest elections. And if you don't have those two things, you don't have a country, really. And we don't have a border. We had, coming into our country in the last 3.5 years, more than 21 million people. And many of those people were people you do not want to have in your country. And we'll discuss that in a couple of seconds. But ever since Iran has been exporting terror all over the world, and it's been just unraveling. The whole Middle East has been unraveling. But, of course, the whole world has been unraveling since we left office. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. This would have never happened in the Middle East. It wouldn't have been on October 7th. You wouldn't have had inflation. We'll go to a different topic. You wouldn't have had inflation. None of these things would have happened. How about Afghanistan, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, in my opinion? Not that we're getting out. I would have gotten out. We were going to get out with dignity and strength, but they get out at the most embarrassing. People falling 3,000 feet off airplanes. The whole thing was bedlam. We lost 13 great soldiers. I got to know their families. And a lot of people, they never talk about the people that lost their arms, their legs, their face. They obliterated. And hundreds of people died. Hundreds of people died that day on the other side, because I count the other side too. But hundreds of people, gross incompetence. You don't take the military out first, let's put it that way. He took the military. Remember A year ago, I brought a young boy who was 5 years old, took him out of the audience. I gave him a quick little study. And I said at the end, so now you know everything about the event. Do you take the military out first or last? He looked at me, you take the military out last, sir. The kid was 5 years old. But we took the military out first, and that's when it came. That was what happened. You know, for 18 months, not one, under my administration, 18 months, not one soldier was shot at. Not one soldier in Afghanistan was killed. And, well, I talked to the league because they were killing a lot of our soldiers with sniper fire, and they were killing a lot of our soldiers. And during the Obama-Biden administration, and I called the head of the Taliban, because it's the Taliban that really, and they said, how come you're calling him, the press, the fake news? Look at all of them. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of cameras. But I called his name, Abdul. I said, Abdul, you're not going to do this anymore, Abdul. Anyway, it's a long story. They said, why would you call him? I said, because that's where the problem is, with Abdul and with the Taliban. And it's like Jesse James. He said, Jesse, why do you always go after banks? Why do you rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is. Pretty simple story, right? But that's where the problem was. And since that time, 18 months, we didn't have one soldier killed or even shot at, not one soldier. But they took the military. When they took over, they took the military, and then all hell broke loose. These people are grossly incompetent. And now we have them in charge of potentially World War III. And World War III is going to be like no other if it happens, because of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction like nobody's ever seen before. I know because I rebuilt our military. I rebuilt it. It needed it. And I hated rebuilding that, but I rebuilt that too because we had no choice. But Iran had no money when I was in charge. They had a lot of money when I started. They had no money when I finished. And now they have $300 billion and another $300 billion from their wholly owned subsidiary, Iraq. It's a wholly owned subsidiary. They probably don't like it when I say that, but that's true. Iraq doesn't like it. But they have $300 billion also from oil. Remember I used to say, don't go into Iraq. Don't do it. To Bush. Don't do it. Don't go into Iraq. But they went into Iraq. Then they were there. I said, all right, you're there. Keep the oil. Just keep the oil. Remember I used to say, keep the oil. You know, Iraq has more oil than almost anybody. It's like massive. But they didn't keep the oil. And they have hundreds of billions of dollars right now. Under my administration, we had no war in the Middle East. We had no war in Europe. We had harmony in Asia. We had no inflation. We had no Afghanistan catastrophe. Instead, we had peace, peace, peace. We had a lot of peace. Think of it. The only war we had was ISIS. And I went to ISIS. I wanted to see what the hell was going on. I went to Iraq. I flew there late at night, middle of the night. I landed and spoke to a lot of great people. And I spoke to a general, Raisin Cain. You know that story. I won't go into it. But Raisin Cain, General Raisin Cain, a real general. And these aren't like the guys you see on television. These are the real generals. We have unbelievable military. Believe me, we wiped them out in 4 weeks instead of 5 years. It was supposed to take, sir, it'll take 5 years to. I said, we got the greatest planes, the greatest weapons in the world. What do you mean 5 years? So I went over there and I said to the general, I landed. I saw him central casting. These guys are all central casting. Better than anybody that you could get in Hollywood to, because they're a little not so good in Hollywood, you know. They don't look quite as tough. They don't look quite as tough. And I said, like, what's your name? I'm coming down the stairs from Air Force One. I said, so what's your name? He said, Cain, sir, Cain. Oh, what's your first name? Well, they call me Raisin. I said, what? They call me Raisin. I said, you mean your name is Raisin Cain? Yes, sir. You're the guy I'm looking for. I'm finally finding, Tommy, the guy that I want. I said, how come it's taking so long to get rid of this ISIS? I mean, they fight with knives. By the way, they're great fighters. They are. They're great fighters. Just some of their other rivals, but they're great fighters. Well, they weren't doing it the right way, sir. So why didn't you do it the way you wanted? Because it's not up to me. When they came in from Washington, you know, the Millies of the world, stiffs, total stiffs, stupid people. They told us how to fight, sir. But I said, so why didn't you change it? Did you talk? No, sir, we're not allowed to do that. You don't do that in the military. You take your orders. I said, that's a strange. I don't know if that's a good system or bad. In one way, it's good, but in a lot of ways, it's probably bad. I said, so what? Do you know how to do it? Yes, sir, I do. So how long would it take? We've been fighting them for years, and they say it would take 5 years to get rid of them. How long? We can do it in 4 weeks, sir. What? We can knock them out in 4 weeks. I said, 4 weeks? You got to understand, these guys are like central casting. He said he had a drill sergeant that was better looking and tougher than any guy you could ever put into a movie. You know, we've had a couple of them. Have you ever seen where the drill sergeant goes in and he has these actors, big name actors, and he's trying to teach them how to become a drill sergeant. In the movie, he's a drill sergeant. And after about 5 minutes, the actor said, I could never do that. Because it's a different level, okay, of toughness. And one movie, what was that great movie that was made where a Full Metal Jacket? You know, it's a very, they took somebody from the military, a top drill sergeant, right? Oh, that's good. Stand up. That's great. Full Metal Jacket, right? He was supposed to get the Academy Award. He should have gotten it, but he actually, you know, honestly, he wasn't acting. But he was unbelievable in that movie. So he was teaching, I don't want to use the names, but big stars. And they couldn't, they were really bad. And then one of the producers came in from one of the big studios, MGM, whatever it was, and he saw this guy saying, do it this way, and he's screaming like crazy. They right in the guy's face this far. And he said, I don't think any actor can do that. Anyway, they end up hiring the guy that was supposed to teach. He went through 5 actors, and every one of them was weak and not believable. And he went through 5, and then the guy sees it. He said, maybe we could get this guy, but nobody ever heard of him. He was in the military. And it ended up to be one of the greatest movies because of him, largely because of him. And he was supposed to get the Academy Award, but they didn't, you know, because he wasn't part of the establishment, to put it mildly, right? But he was great. How good was that movie, right? Does it get too much better? That's great. I like that. But now we go in, and he says to me, yeah, 4 weeks, sir. I said, 4 weeks? We've been fighting for years, like what, 20 years? He said, no, we can do it. Why is it that it was so bad? Well, sir, they wanted to all leave from this major base, but we're very far away. By the time the planes got there, they had to come back. Refueling them was tough, but they had to really come back, so they'd be over there for about just a short period of time, like about 5 minutes, and then they have to start heading back because it's a very long flight. And we didn't have any time, and we didn't have the right aircraft. We were sending wrong. He said, but we have auxiliary bases. We have what we call portable bases, sir. We have portable runways in the desert. Very good. And we got a lot of them, sir. They didn't want to use them because they wanted to be politically correct. I said, so what would you do? I'd use them, sir. And so you tell me you think you can do something in 4 weeks that these people in Washington couldn't do in 5 years? And they said 5 years, and we don't know if we could do it. Yes, sir. How sure are you? 100% you'll have time left over, sir? Yeah, you got to be kidding. This was a good trip, the great Tommy Thompson. This was a good trip for me, Tommy, because I said, you know, I didn't expect this result. I said maybe 2 years, 3 years. And he goes, no, sir. I said, so what are you going to do? We're going to get to these bases. We're going to hit them from the left. We're going to hit them from the right. We'll hit them from the east and the west and the north and the south. We're going to come from underneath. We're going to come under the ground. We're going to go over their heads. We're going to come from so many different. They're not going to know what the hell. And I'm using a good word because Franklin Graham does not like it when I curse. It's not nearly as good. I keep telling him. I could have used a word that would have shocked the hell out of you. You would have loved it. Then you would have gone home and said, he uses foul language. No, Franklin Graham said, sir, we love your stories. We love you. We love you. But, sir, if you could not use foul language, it would be even better. He's wrong about that. It's not as good. Okay? Not as good. But, not as good. But anyway, and he said, yeah, we'll knock him out. And I won't go through the rest of the story, but the bottom line, it was less than 4 weeks. The guy was unbelievable, and they knocked the hell out of him. And we defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate, 100% of it. And I tell that story sometimes because we have actually a great military, and we don't have a woke military. I mean, some of these idiots on top are woke. They're politicians more than they are military people. That's why they got there, frankly, which is a little bit sad. You should get there based on military victory, not because of that. But you could keep these people like that fought for me so brilliantly, you could put them in a woke cage. We call it a woke cage for 2 years, scream at them, only woke stuff. And when they come out, they'll say, let's go USA, let's go MAGA. They'll say, we want MAGA. They won't be convinced. They won't be convinced. Tommy, they're not going to be woke. I guarantee you. I met them. They're not wokesters. Anyway, so now war or the threat of war is raging everywhere, and the two incompetent people running our country, or what, I don't actually think they're even running it, are leading us to the brink of World War III, a war like no other. This is what the policies of weakness and appeasement have brought to the world. And as I've been saying for a long time, terrible things can happen. When you have incompetent leadership, really bad things can happen. I mean, there's a story that I just told you about how quickly we took out the enemy that we were fighting for 20 years, close to 20 years. You wouldn't trust Joe or Kamala to run a lemonade stand anywhere, would you? If your child were running a stand, the way I used to run a lemonade stand, I'd say, Mom, outside of my house in Queens, I'd run. There weren't that many people walking in front of the stand, but I ran it. But if I wasn't going to run it, I wouldn't let one of those two run it because they wouldn't have any idea. Like Joe, he was essentially convicted of documents. I was, with all the weaponization, I went through years of hell. And I have the Presidential Records Act lets you do that. But I went through years of this. Well, he had the same thing times 10. And they found him, and he didn't have the Presidential Records Act because he wasn't president, right? And so he was guilty. And they said, okay, he's guilty, but we're not going to hold him to it because he's incompetent, right? That's what they said, essentially, in a little different language. They said, we're not going to hold him to it, so he is guilty, but we don't think he can stand trial. But he's allowed to run our country, but he can't stand trial. I said, what's that all about? But I said, you know what? If that's the only way to get out, where they find you incompetent, I said, I'd rather be found guilty. I don't want that to be happening. I don't want that to be happening. But they weaponize government. It's no surprise that Iran desperately wants Kamala Harris to be president. They endorsed her. I think they actually endorsed her. I don't know. So did Putin. Putin endorsed her. And he was endorsed. He actually endorsed her with a smile on his face. He's going like, no, I think her. He would want her. He would want. I don't think he knew exactly what to say. It was very interesting, actually. But he did. He said, I think she, because of her, he said, because of her experience in losing. Because they know as long as she's in power, they can take advantage of America like never before. And, for 4 years, this country was respected. I was respected, but this country was respected. Viktor Orban said, if you bring Trump back, he's the head of Hungary, you bring Trump back, there won't be any problems anywhere. We had no problems in the world. But that's why they target me. That's why I'm targeted. I'm targeted by a lot. Iran and targeted, we know for a fact, but probably others. But they only target consequential presidents. They don't target Joe on the beach as he sleeps. He sleeps. How do you fall asleep when cameras are raging, right? You got the paparazzi, you got everybody. He's dead sound asleep. I wish I could have that secret because, that's a talent. I wish I could do that. Sleep with the cameras. Tommy, could you do that? I don't think Scott could do that, right? I don't think so. But if I were in charge, today's attack on Israel never would have happened. all of the things that we're talking about never would have happened, including that botched withdrawal that made us look so bad. Probably the reason that Russia went into Ukraine. They saw that, and because it was right after that, they saw that and they said, wow, these people are not what we thought. If I win, we will have peace in the world again. I guarantee we will have peace in the world again. And if Kamala gets 4 more, unthinkable, right? If she gets 4 more years, the world goes up in smoke. This world will go up in smoke. So we're grateful to be joined today by some tremendous people from Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin. We should win Wisconsin. Will you please make sure? Right? If we win Wisconsin, we win. Right, Scott? Now, if we win Wisconsin, we win. It's going to be a big one. And I've done a lot for Wisconsin, you know. The shipbuilding contract, I took such heat from other states. They wanted it, and I gave it to Wisconsin. And they're doing a good job, aren't they? I hear that. Big, big contract, one of the biggest contracts. They're doing a good job, but I took a lot of heat. And the Keystone XL pipeline, I know you had a lot of people involved in that. What a bunch of stupid people. To think of it, I rejected Putin's pipeline going through. I had it stopped. And I approved the Keystone XL pipeline, also the Dakota pipeline. By the way, isn't it nice to have a guy that doesn't need teleprompters to tell this stuff? Thanks. You know, I'm going through all these names, and it's not part of my thing. I'm going through all these names. You think Biden could do that? I don't think so. He can't remember. I won't say. I was going to almost say his wife's name, but I didn't want to say that. I almost said it. Remember when he called his sister his wife? Some things you can't do. You know what you can't do? When he, and I don't want to talk about him because he's gonzo. He's gonzo in many ways. But remember, it's great to be in New Hampshire. And he was in Florida. And you can't make, you know, Winston Churchill was a great speaker, but if you say, like, it's great to be in Iowa and it's Idaho, at least that's within the realm, right? But the Florida stuff you can't do with the palm trees, right? But remember he did that? And I was saying, you know, if you were Winston Churchill, he was a great orator. If you were Winston Churchill and you made that mistake, no matter how good you speak you could speak for 2 hours after that, it's over, right? It's over. You will never have a successful speech. So, but we're grateful to be joined today by a man who's really incredible, respected all over. We'll bring him with us. He's just somebody that really poured his guts out for this state and did a fantastic job. He was a great governor, Scott Walker. Scott, back there. Thank you, Scott. And another former governor, so respected, he's like the dean. He's the dean, they call him that. And I'll never forget, in 2016, I ran, and he said, sir, you're wasting your time. You're not going to win Wisconsin. I said, I think I will. I made a speech up there, but I said, no, he's not going to win Wisconsin. But here's the deal. Remember this? He said, here's the deal. If I think you're going to win, I'll call you back. Otherwise, don't waste your time. Go to Pennsylvania, go to other places that you have to win, which I appreciate. I mean, that's better than, like, wasting your time. He said, so you're not going to win it, but if for any reason I see a change, I'm going to call you back and you'll come up and you'll close it up. And he called me about 3 weeks later. He said, it's time to come up. You're going to win this thing, right? Tommy Thompson. And we did. That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Do you remember that, Tommy? That's pretty cool. Most guys say, oh, come up. Come up. Don't waste a half a day, even though you can't win. It was pretty. I'll never forget that. Sir, get in your plane. Let's go. You're going to win the state. And we did win the state. That was quite a time. Remember that beautiful evening in 2016? That was the greatest. I had a 3% chance, and I said, it's not a 3%. I was getting the biggest crowds that anybody's ever had. By the way, they're much bigger today than they were in 2016 or in 2020. But I was getting the biggest crowds. Everything was so. And the fake news had me at 97% chance of losing. And then they have, as we started winning, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, all the way up running. It goes from 97 for her. Hillary, Cricket Hillary. She suffers serious case of Trump derangement syndrome, right? But Cricket Hillary. So we go 90, she's got 97, and then it goes, Trump just won Florida, 91, 86, 79, do you remember? And then it got to be 50%, then it got to be 42% for her. And then that's when that crazy woman started screaming, remember, with the glasses? No, no. She was crazy. I wonder whatever happened to her. She's probably... I just wonder where she is right now. I'd love to find out where she is. She was very famous. The level of craziness with her was incredible. And we did a great job. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We did a great job. We also have a candidate for Congress who's really highly thought of, Eric Olson. Eric? Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Good luck. Good luck. I heard you're doing really well. Thanks, Eric. Early mail-in and absentee voting in Wisconsin is underway now, right now as we speak. So don't vote you got to go as soon as you can and get out there and do the voting thing. Do it any way you want. You can vote. You don't have to vote one way. You can vote another way, but just get out there and vote. A lot of people say vote by ballot, vote by this. You could also go. It doesn't matter. But make sure your vote is counted. We're going to leave nothing to chance and everything on the field. 35 days from now, we're going to win Wisconsin, and we're going to defeat Kamala Harris, and we're going to make America great again, right? Oh, nice. Thank you. And I'm asking every citizen to join me in launching sort of a new golden age for America. We're so embarrassed by what's happened over the last 4 years. It's just a terrible, terrible thing. It's interesting, though, because we had 2 great elections, the second one being much better than the first. Hard to believe, right? They said, what happened? I said, well, we did much better. But they say that this one, I've just asked some of the people in the back that are here, working here, they said this one is far stronger than number 1 or number 2, and they were good. But this is much, and you know, the reason I think I've changed, I don't think I've changed at all. I think what has changed is you've got something to compare it to. And you're seeing the most incompetent administration in history, the absolute worst president in the history of our country. They rate vice presidents too, and she's rated last, but he's rated last. The worst president. Jimmy Carter is the happiest man because Jimmy Carter is considered a brilliant president by comparison. I mean, Jimmy Carter didn't let 21 million people come into our country without checks, without balance, without anything, from parts unknown, from parts of the world that nobody ever even knew existed. And some of them are rough. And we'll talk about that too. But as catastrophic as Kamala's failures are, the good news is that we have a plan to fix it, and we're going to fix it fast. And we have to get these people out, all these criminals that are coming into our country and destroying the fabric of our country. And really, an extraordinary future is within our grasp. We can do it. If we don't do it this time, I think it's going to be gonzo. I'm not even sure you'll ever have another election. These group is sick. They're sick. We can soon have soaring incomes, skyrocketing wealth, millions and millions of new jobs, a manufacturing renaissance, and a booming middle class, which is really why I'm here to talk about. That's why I'm in this beautiful factory. We can live in cities and towns that are safe and clean, and borders that are sealed and secure, and America can once again be a nation that is strong and confident and free. Together we can reclaim our pride, our dignity, and our glorious American dynasty. We could also, for our children, we can create the American dream again, because there is no American dream right now. But only if we make a clean break from the failures of the past 4 years, the worst administration ever, and elect a man named, have you ever heard of him, Donald J. Trump, on November 5th. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If Kamala Harris gets 4 more years instead of a golden age, America will be condemned to a fate of decline, desperation, and despair. That's where we are right now. Your family finances will be permanently destroyed. Your borders will be gone forever. Tens of millions more illegal aliens will invade our cities and towns. You see what's going on with cities and towns all across America. They're devastated. Medicare and Social Security will buckle and collapse because these people are going on to your Social Security rolls, if you can believe it. They can't speak English. They came here illegally, and they're destroying Social Security. And I will never let it happen. And I'll tell you, I never did let it happen. And I didn't do the rage, they want to do, and they're going to do, no doubt about it, a big an increase in age and wage, because what that means is you're going to go way up in terms of when you qualify. So how would you like to say, oh, wow, I was going to be on Social Security now, but I got to wait another 5-6 years because of Kamala. That's what's going to happen. I have no doubt about it. That's what's going to happen because it's under tremendous pressure. They're signing these people just like they're trying to sign them to vote. Frankly, that's the thing it maybe bothers me more. There's a reason why they let all these people in, because they want to get them to vote. That's the reason. So Wisconsin, if you want to avoid this miserable fate that we talk about for your family and for our country, and then you have to turn out in record numbers. You have to come out in record numbers because she is the worst. And we're going to look at her. We're going to say, Kamala, you have been terrible. You've done a terrible job. You were the worst vice president in history. You shouldn't have even had a chance to run for president. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. The Apprentice. The Apprentice. She wouldn't have won The Apprentice, I guarantee. No, we had much smarter people than that. She wouldn't have won The Apprentice. Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again. We'll do that. We've got to bring it down. Now, biggest problem, outside of, the biggest problem to me is always the nuclear problem, because that's, that supersedes everything. That supersedes inflation. To me, that supersedes everything. But outside of that, the biggest problem we have is that's what's happened with pricing. You can make the same or you can make more, but if things cost 50, 60, 80, 100% more than they did 4 years ago, people that were saving a lot of money are now losing a lot of money. They're taking the money they saved and they're spending it. So we're going to get those prices down. We're going to start with energy. But if Kamala is reelected, one of her very first acts will be to massively raise taxes on all American families. I never saw a person campaign on tax increases. She openly says we're going to campaign on tax increase. And she wants to get rid of the Trump tax cuts, which were the biggest tax cuts in history. And when you add it together, it's the biggest increase in taxes by far in history. And they call her in San Francisco the tax queen because she used to tax people a lot and run the place very badly, obviously. She's already cost the average family $29,000 with rampant inflation. Now she's coming back for more with a plan to raise typical family taxes by $2,600 a year. So on top of all of the costs that you have, they're not going to go down. They're not going to go down under their plan. Under my plan, they're going to plummet, but they're not going to go down. She wants the largest small business tax hike in history, and many of you own small businesses. In history, by far, eliminating the small business pass-through for tens of millions of small businesses. A lot of people don't know what that is. What it means is your business is worthless. She backed a 33% tax hike on U.S. manufacturers and domestic producers, which would mean jobs fleeing and prices skyrocketing for American consumers. You'll start the whole big inflation disaster all over again. And what you saw the other day is for purposes of politics, they gave you a good decrease in interest rate, but it's okay because you deserve it. The reason they did it, though, is the economy is terrible, and everybody here knows it. The economy is terrible, and that's why they did it. It's probably political, but they probably did the right thing because the economy is absolutely terrible. She wants to drastically raise the death tax. You know what that is? Radically increase the capital gains tax. You know, in the death tax, I have a provision. If you have a small farm or business, you can leave it to your children tax-free, tax-free. She's getting rid of that. I always say, if you don't like your children, don't waste your time applauding. But if you do, does anybody not like their children? No, if you have a small business, you have no estate tax or death tax. And if you have children that you love, that's a big deal. If you have children that you don't care about, you don't want to leave them anything, don't waste your time listening. But to me, I've never had anyone raise their hand. I mean, there must be some people. I've had big crowds. I said, raise your hand if you don't like your children. I think nobody had the courage to raise their hand. But no, it's a tremendous thing. You know, you leave your farm to your children, and before I came along, they'd go out, they'd have to borrow money. It's valuable, but they didn't have cash. And they'd borrow from the bank, and the bank would almost always end up taking it over in a disaster, like a disaster. The parents meant well, and the kids end up losing it because the tax is very substantial. So you don't have that tax to pay. She wants to put that tax back. That's a big deal. And she's pledged to create a brand new wealth confiscation tax on unrealized capital gains, which is one that nobody outside the communist countries, only communist countries think about it, but they don't even do it, which would crash the stock market like in 1929, annihilate the pensions, 401ks, and all of the retirement accounts, and millions of middle-class families and seniors on fixed income would be in tremendous trouble. If you want your incomes to plummet, your net worth to collapse, your tax bills to soar, and your jobs to totally disappear, that doesn't sound too good. Then vote for Kamala, your tax queen. She's a big taxer, and your taxes are going to go through the roof. But if you want Washington bureaucrats to keep their greedy hands out of your pockets and out of your, just leave my money alone. And if you want to have a tremendous history and legacy, and if you want to have a country that's strong and prosperous and great, you're going to vote for Trump, and we'll turn it around very fast. Not going to be that easy, but we'll turn it around fast. See, we're lucky because underneath our feet, we have more liquid gold than any other country. You know, that's always been a big thing. Who has the most energy? We have more energy. We have more oil and gas under our feet than anybody else, more than Russia, more than Saudi Arabia. We go to Venezuela to buy it. It's like they buy it in Venezuela. And they use the strategic reserves. Did you hear the other day? They're the lowest they've been in 50 years because they wanted to keep the oil and gas down for the election. So they've really jeopardized our country because that's meant for war. It's meant for big things, not to keep your prices down a little bit. And it doesn't even matter that much. You lose it so fast because there are so many cars, and it really dissipates it. But they just announced that it's the lowest it's been in many, many decades, and that's really dangerous, actually. We need that for bad times, real bad times. And Kamala's promising the largest tax hikes in American history. When did you ever hear that, Scott, that we are going to give you the largest tax hikes in the history of our country? You know, all my life, I've been with I'd like politics, and I've never seen people like this. They announced that they want open borders. They announced that they want men playing in women's sports. And they announced that we're going to give you the biggest tax hikes, not cuts. When I read the story, I thought they made a mistake. I thought it was like somebody did a typo, cuts instead of hikes. But they are going to deliver you the largest tax hikes in the history of our country, like 40%, 50% more. She said 70 or 80% is okay. And you're going to be a big beneficiary of that. It's a disaster. But I delivered you the largest tax cuts in American history, larger than even the Reagan tax cuts, as you know. And in my next term, we will give you massive tax cuts for workers, families, and small businesses. We're going to go further. That's one of the reasons we were able to succeed, because we brought taxes down and those businesses thrived. You know, we did more business. We cut the business tax from 39% to 21%. Everyone said it was impossible. And you'll see now I'm cutting it down to 15%, but only if you make your product in Wisconsin. Only if you make your product in America. How good. I've had these guys from Wall Street, sharp as hell, call me, where the hell did you get that idea? In other words, we're bringing it down to 15. So 21 made us pretty competitive with the rest of the world. We're competing with the world. But 15 makes you really super competitive, but only if you build it here. And then you have something that she copied but hasn't, we haven't heard from it since. She can't do it. She would never be able to do it because they have all this legislation pending so that you could go after people with tips. She wanted to go after people with tips. We have the opposite. We will have no tax on tips. No tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our seniors. Oh. Remember that, and she's not doing that. She never will. She never will. She can't do it. You know, remember their promise to, the education was going to get rid of the student loans? That didn't work out too well. And for the students out there, you didn't get it. They talked about it for 3 years. They didn't get it. And just a wasted promise. I just hope everyone knows you're not getting it because they never got it. They said they were going to get it, but I get what we want. I get 100% of what we want. Instead of raising taxes on American manufacturers like this one, we will cut their taxes from 21%, which nobody thought possible, to 15%. So, but only if they make their product here in America and hire American workers for the job, okay? I think it's great. Good idea, right? And if they don't make their product here, then they will pay a tariff. In other words, if they make their product in another country, a competitor, their competitors. Right now, I had that all going, and then we had to take care of the COVID situation. We did a great job on COVID, never got the credit for that. I got the credit for military, I got credit for economy, I got a lot. We did a great job on that, and an amazing job on that. Nobody knew what the hell it was. The COVID came in, a gift from China, right? But we did, but we had to take care of that. But we were all set. We already did it with a couple of countries, Japan and China and others. But we'll take in billions and billions of dollars and use that money to reduce tax burdens on hardworking Americans. We're going to use the power of the tariff so that when you open your factory and you start producing and you have your low tax, that China and various other countries, not only China, don't come in and steal your business away from you like they did prior to Trump. And Mexico right now is going to town. You have big auto plants being built by China in Mexico. They think they're going to sell cars, make cars by the millions, and destroy Detroit and South Carolina and lots of other areas that make cars. We're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let that happen. We'll put a tariff on those cars of 100 to 200%. We're not going to let them. I don't know if you heard, they're building some of the biggest auto plants in the world right opposite the border. They think they're going to make those cars and put them into our country and pay no tax and drive Detroit out of business. By the way, United Auto Workers, did you see where the Teamsters endorsed Trump? The rank and file, 61%. But the United Auto Workers are at 80% for Trump because they are, let me tell you, they're being sold out by this stupid person they have leading them. Just like I mentioned the Keystone Pipeline, the head of that, I don't know if he's still there, I don't know, the head of the union, we had 50,000 jobs, many of them in this area, from this area, but we had 50,000 jobs of people, all they do is build pipelines. And this guy went along with Biden and he endorsed Biden. And the first thing Biden did is cut the Keystone Pipeline. I had approved it was under construction. We needed it. It was very important. But the rank and file was always for us. And you'll see that a lot. The rank and file wants us. And you have these leaders, if you call them leaders, they're so used to it's almost like by habit or something else. Some other things happen that are very good for them. But they endorse the Democrats. But the people, the workers in this country, they want us. We're going to put them back to work. We're going to have more factories opened here for cars and for other things. And it's a very simple thing to do. And by the way, not so different from what China does. If Elon wants to sell cars into China, they'll say no. But if Elon wants to build cars and sell them to China, they say, come on over, build a plant. We'll even help you build it. We'll finance it. We'll do lots of things. But come over and build your plant in China. India is another example with Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson, we know all about. That was terrible. They're building a massive plant, built it in India, because India charges tremendous tariffs. And I once asked, I said, how do you do in India? Not good. Why? Because we have 152% tariff or something. I said, so you can't sell, right? No, we can't. But they said, if we build over there, we'll be fine. So they actually went over there. They built a massive plant. It's not the way it's supposed to work, but you know what? If they play that game, we have to play that game too. We have to do the same thing. It's a very simple game. We want factories to be built in our country, not in other countries. It's going to happen. It's going to happen very fast. And we'll be able to bring the auto business to where it was 50 years ago. And we're going to bring down your energy costs. You know, your costs are really high here. I don't know what's going on. Oh, that's right. He's not governor anymore. You have a Democrat. I don't know what's going on with energy costs here. Your state's one of the highest energy. We're going to bring down your energy costs from January 20th, the day if we win. That's the day we take office. We all take it together. We're going to bring them down 50% within 12 months, and it will be easy, easy. We're bringing them down 50% because it's crazy. They're too high. And again, we have more of it. We don't even use it. We don't even go for it. They don't let us take it out environmentally, you know. They spend all their time and energy on the Green New scam. Do you ever know, though? They don't talk about that anymore. When was the last time you heard about the Green New scam? They don't talk about it. You know why? Because it doesn't work. They wanted $93 trillion. The ultimate plan was $93 trillion. They wanted to rip down all the buildings in Manhattan, those gorgeous buildings with those big, beautiful windows, and they wanted to rebuild them without windows, because without windows is more energy efficient. Tell somebody you're going to take 40,000 feet of office space, but you have no windows. This is what they want. These people are crazy. They're crazy. Take a look at some of them are actually, you got to see the bathrooms that they project for people. I can't talk to you about it because it's so gross. But basically, water-free bathrooms, water-free, no water. This is not good. But these people are crazy. But the total for the ultimate package is $93 trillion. You could get China, us, and everybody else on the planet, and you couldn't afford that in 20 years. And you know, they really hurt our country because you can't do anything unless you get the environmental approvals. And I'm an environmentalist. I want clean air and clean water, really clean water, really clean air. Beyond that, we have to have jobs, and we have to have success, and we have to rebuild our country. Kamala's plan will kill the American dream and make inflation worse than it ever was. My plan will bring back the American dream, but bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. That's what's going to happen. We're going to do it fast. We're just 5 weeks away from the most important election in the history of our country. It is. I believe it's the most important election. I used to say that in 2016, most important election. Then 2020, I didn't say because we were doing great. We had a great country. I almost had a logo, remember? Keep America Great. But it was CAG. CAG, Keep America Great. And I sort of like MAGA much better. MAGA. I don't know if it would have switched. I don't know if CAG would have played well. When Biden used to go out and say, we've got to stop this group called MAGA. We're going to stop. Remember with the purple background and pink background behind, it looked like the devil, right? We're going to stop MAGA. I said, Joe, MAGA, make America great again. That's going to be stopped. It's not going to be stopped. It can't be stopped. If it's going to be stopped, you don't have a country anymore. Make America great again. That's all it is. I could be having a nice life right now. Nobody would be shooting at me. I'd be at the most beautiful beaches in the world. I'd have the greatest life. Somebody said, if you had it to do again, would you do it? Because I did. I had the greatest life. I have the most beautiful properties in the world. I really believe I do. But I have the most beautiful. I could have had the greatest, nicest life, none of this stuff. Would you do it again? Absolutely, I do, because we're doing something this special. It's not even close. It's not even close, right? It's not even close. Not even close. I could have been right now in Monte Carlo, but I'd rather be in Wisconsin, if you want to know. It's true. It's true. You know, honestly, there are a lot of rich guys that are in different places. But there's only one MAGA. There's only one group of people like you. There's only one. We're working together. There's only one. This is the greatest movement in the history of our country. And we're going to prove it again. We're going to prove it again on November 5th. It really is. It's the greatest. And I have to be very careful when I talk because the fake news, if I say something wrong, a little wrong, if I'm 3% off, they'll do headlines. They'll give me Pinocchios, the Pinocchio. The Washington Post, they give you Pinocchios. If you say something perfectly, they give you a Pinocchio. They always find a reason. But if I say anything a little bit out of order, they say, oh, so I have to be very careful. But I will tell you, we're going to do so great with this country, and we're going to bring it back. But MAGA is the greatest movement in the history of our country. There's never been anything wrong. You've had some great people. Remember Pat Buchanan, and I think he came in second to New Hampshire. He's a great guy, conservative guy, wonderful guy. I watched him for years and years, and he had a career in coming in second in New Hampshire, I think it was, right? He came in second. And we won Iowa, we won New Hampshire, we won South Carolina, we won everything, and then we went on to win the election. There's never been anything like this. We won 32 states, and then we did better the second time, but we're going to do better than we ever did this time. I think we're going to do better than we ever did. And I don't take day offs. They all say, are you planning any days off, sir? What would your days off be? I said, I'm not taking days off. We have 33 days. I'm out every day. I'm scheduled every single day. I'm not taking days off because we can't. We can't take days off. We have to work. And I've been working a lot of days in a row. I don't know what it is, but we're all over the place. I think we're going to Texas tonight or tomorrow. I don't even ask anymore. I get on the plane. I say, what's my next stop? Sir, tonight we're going to Texas. Congratulations, and we're winning big in Texas, I'll tell you. We're winning big in Texas. 3 days ago, I was in the small town of Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, where an illegal alien member of a savage Venezuelan prison gang from Kamala, who let them into the country, and this vicious savage was arrested this month. Good law enforcement up there. I mean, I got to meet the whole group. They're great. But was arrested this month for holding a mother and daughter against their will and sexually assaulting them and roughing them up like you wouldn't believe. You don't want to hear about it. What Kamala is doing to our country is criminal, and it's impeachable. And in my opinion, it's totally unforgivable. She's allowing people to come at levels like nobody's ever seen. And the corrupt media is outraged that I keep talking about migrant crime and the migrant crime epidemic. It's the worst thing that's happened to our country in 50 years. They're taking over our small towns and cities. They're taking over our big cities, too. Look at New York. Look at Chicago. Look at Los Angeles. Look at our biggest cities. They can't move. They can't function. The crime is through the roof. And if you fight it, you get indicted. The mayor of New York, you fight it, you get indicted. He was appalled at what was happening, and they indicted him, and I predicted it. I said, he'll be indicted within a year, because I saw he was saying, this is horrible. This is horrible for our city. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of people all over the streets, and they're rough people. They're rough people. And I say they come from prisons. They come from mental institutions. They're terrorists. These are tough people. And I'm outraged that Kamala Harris keeps importing. They keep coming. But the other day, 2 days, she's getting killed in the issue, and I think it's maybe the most important. Right now, it may be the most. To me, it's the most important issue. Inflation, we can solve it. So many things we can solve. When you let 21 million people in our country, and let me tell you, if she's here for 4 years, she'll have 200 million people in our country, and they will likewise come from prisons and mental institutions. So I'm outraged that over 13,000, the exact number is 13,099, convicted illegal alien murderers are now on the loose. They allowed to come in over 13,000 murderers, many of them murdering many more than one person. They're murderers. and they're out there someplace. Who knows? We may have a few in the room. Would anybody like to raise your hand? No, think of it, 13,000. It's 240,000 very serious, but it's actually 644,000 major criminals came in with the 21 million people. This is more, you know, if there's a murder, you ever watch, there's some murder escapes jail, they have a dragnet, they have a big dragnet, they're looking all over every city, every state, they're looking. We got 13,000 people that are worse than any criminal that we've been looking for a long time. I mean, you have some of these guys have committed 10 murders, 12 murders. Many were on the death chamber. They're going to be executed. They said, why should we execute them? Do you know the money that they're letting all their prisoners out of jails? They're taking all their gang members in town and they're letting them out. Caracas, Venezuela, crime is down 72%. They're down because they're taking all their criminals and putting them here. I'm outraged at Kamala Harris freed 2 illegal alien thugs who assaulted, kidnapped, and murdered a 12-year-old girl named Jocelyn. You know all about Jocelyn. I'm outraged that Kamala released into America the predator who murdered Laken Riley, beautiful Laken Riley. Is going to be a nurse. She was at the top of her class, always was at the top of her class. Beautiful person, a great family, by the way. I'm outraged that she let in the savage who raped and murdered Rachel Morin. Kamala let her in. She murdered him. In my opinion, Kamala murdered him, just like she did, just like she had a gun in her hand. I'm outraged on behalf of every American family because remember, Kamala was the border czar. She was appointed. Now she doesn't want that title, but she had that title for 3.5 years. And I'm really outraged when I look at the television screen a few days ago and I see her up there trying to justify how well she did on the border. Worst border in the history of our country, and a bad human being. She's a, as you know, she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist, she's a Marxist. And we don't want a Marxist in charge of this country. We would never want a Marxist in charge. A lot of people don't know what a Marxist is. They said, sir, don't use Marxist. They don't know what it is. You have a good enough. Say communist, would that be easier? We don't need it in this country. We're not going to have it in this country. She's the one, and they're the ones that are destroying our country. You remember with the State of the Union speech, I said, we will never be a socialist country. And I have to always be right about it. So I was happy in only one sense. We will not be a social. Beautiful State of the Union speech. I thought I did quite well. Standing ovations, at least from the Republicans, I got to say, but standing ovation. But I said, we'll never be a socialist country. And I was right. Because they skipped socialism. They went right down to communism. They went right down, they skipped it. So I was right. So I said, I told you there'd never be a socialist country. I didn't expect that to happen. 425,000 convicted criminal aliens, according to ICE's newly published data, and are now free to roam the United States. They're roaming all over the country. They're here too. You just don't know it yet. You'll find out. Kamala's agenda is bringing death and despair. Kamala and Joe are crime creators. We are crime fighters. We're crime fighters. We will restore light and hope, and I will make America safe again. On day one of my new administration, the invasion ends and the deportation begins. I will stop all migrant flights to Wisconsin and every other state. Can you believe it? They were saying, no, we're fighting on the border. We're fighting. You know, they had to. They're not really, because they want them to come in. They want them to vote. We're fighting on the border. We're fighting. And then we find out that big Boeing airplanes are flying over with hundreds of thousands of people and dumping them into towns and little cities and states all over the Midwest and all over our country. They're here. They fly in. They're saying how much they're fighting it. And then we learn that they're flying them in. Well, that means that it's a big con job because they're flying them in. They're in airplanes. I will shut down all entries through Kamala's migrant phone app. She's got a phone app. And you know who it's meant for? The cartel heads. The heads. So the cartel heads call the app and they tell them where to drop the illegal migrants. This is the administration. It's not even believable. But those people back there, the media, are so corrupt, they don't even want to write about it. They don't want to write about it. They're corrupt. I will send in federal law enforcement to liberate every Midwestern town that has been taken over by migrant gangs and criminal alien thugs. We will send them back, and we will take back our country soon. We'll be using local police. Local police, they want it more than I do. They don't want it. These people, these law enforcement people that we have. You know, almost every single law enforcement group in the United States of America has endorsed me. They don't endorse her. Almost everyone. I just shook hands with a lot of the police. Sir, we endorsed you 2 months ago. Like everyone. We will become energy independent and then energy dominant like no country has ever been before. We have more than anybody else. And we will bring energy prices, as I told you, we're going to bring them down 50% in 12 months from January 20th when we take off. And we will terminate the Green New Scam and spend the trillions of unspent dollars on roads, bridges, real infrastructure, and paying down debt, $36 trillion. Not fake infrastructure that's caused massive inflation and no benefit. You know, a lot of the spending they did, this wasteful spending, is the thing that caused it. I think energy caused it, number one, what they did with energy, but I think that the spending was a big factor, too. I will settle the war in Ukraine before I even take office. I'll settle it as president-elect. I met with President Zelensky the other day. I know President Putin very well. I'll get it settled. I will end the chaos in the Middle East, and I will prevent World War III, something nobody else can say. And we will rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. And we will keep the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Right now, it's under threat. It's under siege. It's horrible what's going on. If we lose the world's reserve currency, that's like losing a war, isn't it? That would be like losing a war, maybe worse in many ways. Then we would be a third world nation. This is how we will end the era of inflation, mayhem, and misery under Kamala and Joe Biden, Crooked Joe, and unleash safety, prosperity, and peace for Americans of every race, religion, color, and creed. It's so important. We're going to make this country so good, and we're going to do it fast. The hardest thing we have to do is solve the crime problem. The crime problem is out of control. It was out of control before the migrant situation, but now it's crazy. Together, we will deliver low taxes, low regulations. We will deliver low energy costs, low interest rates, low inflation, and everyone can afford, everyone's going to be able to afford groceries again, a car again, and a home. You can't afford cars, you can't afford homes. Interest rates have gone from 2% to 10%, but it's really much higher because at 10% you can't get any money, so it's obviously not 10%. They say 10%. They said you don't get the money, so you have to go higher. We will stop the invasion, end migrant crime, support our great police, strengthen our military, build a missile defense shield, which we're entitled to, keep critical race theory and transgender insanity the hell out of our schools, and we will keep men out of women's sports. We will defend the Second Amendment, restore free speech, and we will secure our elections. Everyone will prosper, every family will thrive, and every day we will be filled with opportunity and hope. We don't have opportunity. We don't have hope anymore in this country. There's no hope. Your kids, you have beautiful kids, and they don't even know what to do. There's no hope. We're gonna bring back spirit. Spirit is a word. But we're going to bring back spirit for our country again, and they're going to have lots of hope, and they're going to have that American dream back soon. But for that to happen, we must defeat Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. You can't call her Harris. Nobody knows who the hell I'm talking about. I say Harris has been a horrible vice president. They said Harris. Let's see, Harris. Isn't it funny? The name just doesn't care, so we call her Kamala. But we'll defeat her, and we must stop her country-destroying liberal agenda once and for all. She's a radical left lunatic. Remember, early mail-in voting is underway, so vote, vote, vote. You got to get going. And we want to make this election, you know the expression, too big to rig. Too big to rig. Because at a certain size, they can't do it. They're going to say, oh, geez, this is tougher than we thought. No, because they have no shame. On November 5th, we will save our economy, we'll save our country. It will go down as the most important day in the history of our country. We will rescue our middle class. We will reclaim our sovereignty and restore our borders. And we will put America first. We will put it first always. We will make America powerful again, wealthy again, healthy again, strong again, proud again, safe again, free again, and we will make America great again. Thank you very much, Wisconsin. Thank you very much. Thank you.
In the White House, I guess he's having I don't know if it's a cabinet meeting or something. I'm sure it'll be, let me see if I can grab him quick. Not that it really matters. Who knows if he even knows what's going on. All right, actually, I can go back here. So here's the president.
The brazen attack we expected. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel. And I've spent the morning and part of the afternoon in the Situation Room and meeting with my whole national security team and consulting with the Israelis indirectly because in terms of their impact on us. And the national security team has been, as I said, in constant contact with Israeli officials and their counterparts, and is going to continue to be brought to me throughout the day. We're still out to share updates when we get them, and we will do that. And now I want to turn to what we're going to be talking about today, the damage done by this horrible hurricane. My top priority, and I mean it sincerely because we've been through a lot of these, my top priority is to ensure the communities devastated by this hurricane get the help and support they need as quickly as possible. As quickly as possible. As we watch the storm from the Gulf region form, I also directed FEMA to redeploy a substantial number of assets and resources to ensure we're ready to deal with what we expected and to support all the folks in need. We had over 1,000 federal personnel, including search and rescue teams, at the ready on the ground before it hit. Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama became the staging ground for responders throughout the entire region. With 2.7 million meals, nearly 2 million liters of water ready to be distributed before the hurricane hit. I immediately approved emergency declarations as soon as I received the requests from the governors or the state officials. Still, with all this preparation, this was a hurricane of unprecedented and historic proportions. Over the past several days, I've been in regular contact with the governors, the mayors, the county officials in all the affected areas. That includes Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and Virginia. Now, in the storm's wake, I've directed my team, including the leadership of key departments and agencies all across the government, to send every, and I mean it seriously, every available resource that we have at our disposal to the affected region. And that's why we're here today with the cabinet and those acting in the cabinet, because some are deployed already. The Department of Defense, Agriculture, HHS, Transportation, Energy, Homeland Security, EPA, Commerce, Small Business Association, and the U.S. Army, the Corps of Engineers. We need to be all working together, and that's what we're going to talk about, that continued coordination we have going. I've been in frequent contact with the governors and other leaders in the impacted areas. And we have to jumpstart this recovery process. People are scared to death. People wonder whether they're going to make it. We still haven't heard from a whole lot of people. This is urgent. People have to know how to get the information they need. So we'll be there until this work is done. It's going to cost, I predict to you, I don't have a number. I think it's going to cost billions of dollars to restore these areas to where they were before. Until the work is done, we're going to stay. I'm going to, as I said, Congress needs to make sure that the states have every available resource. And we have an obligation. This is a storm of historic proportion. Nothing like this has happened in the region since the turn of the 20th century. I think the last was 1914, 1916, in that range. So that's what we're here to discuss, the detail of how we get all that's needed, and it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long haul to restore these communities. And I'm going to be heading down to, anyway, I'll be in the region on Wednesday, and we've had people down there already. It's just going to be real, this is really consequential. Homes come home, they're just washed away. Entire roads washed up, cliffs, I mean, it's just devastating. And so it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of coordination. And if this were in the middle of the term, I'd be asking Congress to prepare they haven't given me the money we need now for this materials that we need for dealing with these devastating storms. It's going to cost them, that's okay. It's probably, is that the speaker calling me? I said he's in, right? Anyway, so we're gonna now have our cabinet meeting, and thank you all for being here. That's an active discussion right now. We've got to get all the data straight. We've been in constant contact with the Israeli government and our counterparts, and that remains to be seen.
What is your message to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and have you spoken with him today?
I haven't spoken with him. We have spoken with all his people, and I'll be talking to him, and my message will depend on what we finally conclude is needed.
What do you believe the consequences for Iran should be?
That remains to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. There's Joe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ooh, that's rough. That is rough, but maybe better than some expected. So, all right, everybody. I think President Trump's actually speaking again at 6:30, but we're going to be getting ready for the debate. Obviously, we're going to go live in that 8 o'clock hour. So I will not be streaming President Trump's second remarks today. But we'll be getting ready for the debate. I hope you'll join us tonight. We'll be on 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock with pre-debate coverage. And then, of course, 9 to 10:30, we'll be live throughout the debate with live commentary as we watch what I think could be a very interesting night. Tim Walz, J.D. Vance, the vice presidential debate, 9 to 10:30. And then we'll have a little post afterwards and see what we think of how the night plays out. So we will see you then. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you tonight live from Studio 6B, Real America's Voice. We'll see you then.